Hi to the
Hi,
podcast.
hi everyone. How's everybody doing?
I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you're all staying healthy and doing all right. We are here with another episode. I know we're a little late or a little behind on these, but that is the result of what we got to do.
Yeah, yeah. The world is the world, but we got to talk about certain things. Hopefully, we'll go from negative to positive.
Well, I don't know if this one, we'll see. Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully, is right.
Uh, the topic we have for today is something that you tipped me off to, which is a Guardian article. Here, wait, actually, I can share it on screen. So if you're watching, you get to see what's on screen. It has been revealed from The Guardian that a far-right anti-Semitic men's club network is spreading across the US, and it's called the Old Glory Club. And it has at least 26 chapters with participants including military personnel, lawyers, and civil servants. Now, that's not good. That's not
No,
good.
well, before we talk about it, Peter, you want to tell people about what you know about the Guardian?
I don't know. Uh,
I
I
know
don't.
it's a British newspaper,
I just
but
know that they're an independent news org. They're not owned by any major media conglomerates, to my knowledge. I can actually double check that as we speak. Um, they are in from because I do a lot of um content on other social platforms regarding news and commentary. I use The Guardian a lot um, because they are a really good org. They're not perfect. I wouldn't say they get everything as truly and fully accurate as some people may want. Um, but I don't think any one place is going to have like that, if that makes sense. I'm not gonna be able to check it right now. Anyways, um, I'm mumbling. I like the Guardian. They're an independent news org. Yes, they're British. I tend to like how they report. I would argue that they are pretty center, and I would argue that they're pretty accurate with what they report for the most part. Obviously, they have a bunch of different news or journalists there, and like all things, occasionally someone's going to screw something up or what have you. Um, so I personally enjoy The Guardian as a nice, reliable source. Um, and so yeah, that's where they come from in my book. As for the general topic, this is unfortunately expected, but not good.
yeah. The reason why this struck at home, let me give you a little history. I might have talked about it in past podcasts. Uh, I am Jewish, and my family came from Russia. They had to escape the Tsar. Otherwise, they would have been killed. Um, I watched friends who were in Germany, part of the concentration camp, killed uh, because they were gathered up. Um, I don't like any groups, including groups that have made themselves legal in the United States, hurting people. And I'll use the word hurting, Hurting, and hurting, Herding, people because of government beliefs. Two separate words. Uh, I watched the KKK grow because I'll be 81 on Saturday. So, in the course of 81 years, I've studied history in school. I've lived history through my grandparents and parents. Um, and I know when something doesn't smell kosher, that means it smells bad. And, you know, it bothers me. I could be wrong. I read this article in The Guardian. I will state that the article is not from me, it is from The Guardian. It's not from Peter, it's from The Guardian.
Yeah,
So,
well, yeah, we'll make sure to quote
yeah,
from the Guardian as well, so that, and I'll bring it up again when I highlight certain things.
yeah. So let me start with something I want to share. I'm reading directly from part of the article. A nationwide U.S. network of dozens of far right men, only fraternal clubs, has what members describe as literally hundreds of participants who include past and currently serving military personnel, lawyers, civil servants, and prominent anti Semitic influences, a Guardian investigation can reveal. The OGC, the Old Glory Club, which has at least 26 chapters in 20 United States, 20 US states, and until now has drawn little attention. And that reminds me of what went on in end of World War One, going into World War Two. Very little attention to the Nazis. And I'm not saying OGC are Nazis. I just don't like what I'm reading here. It exemplifies the alarming rise of organized racist political groups in the past few years, but especially during the rise of Donald Trump and his return to the White House. Uh, Now they talk about a couple of people. Uh, I'm not going to mention their names. A charter member of the group is listed as an officer of the initial filing of the foundation of Old Glory Club. I'm leaving the name off. He is broadly influential figure on the far right. His Substack is the 78th most popular Substack newsletter on US politics, according to that platform's figure.
Oh, I'll read his name. Peter
Okay,
R. Quinones.
okay,
Quinones. Self-described charter member. Yeah.
okay.
These as per the Guardian. This is not, no one's doxing anyone, no one's doing anything illegal. This is public information as per the Guardian. And why did I get blurry? They're coming after me. No.
His podcast was 142nd most popular in US political podcasts, according to data from podcast tracking service Raphonic, putting it roughly on a par with shows by CNN's Caitlin Collins and Andrew Sullivan, and the head of podcasts by Jim Acosta and Candace Owens. So that's pretty good. I mean,
Candace
he's,
Owen is not. Ooh, ooh.
yeah, I know it's an ooey, but I'm just saying he's getting notoriety.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course, because Candace Owens is,
Yeah, yeah,
she's only, I think Candace Owens only decided to start jumping the Trump ship like a month ago. So
yeah.
it makes perfect sense.
He has issued a regular podcast since 2017, first titled Free Man Over the Wall, and later under the present title, The Pete Quinones Show. During the time and continuing up to the present, he has unleashed hundreds of hours of content marked by racism and anti Semitism, which has included urging listeners to take direct action against Jewish and non white neighbors. And that this continuously bothers me. That I know we have freedom of speech, but it's his opinion. But a lot of people out there get influenced by this podcast. And the
Well,
podcast,
look at Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is was a extremely influential podcast host in terms of the last election. He is directly, I wouldn't say directly. You could argue that he's directly responsible for a lot of the views and positions of people's voting, people who voted for Trump last election, because he's now all of a sudden swapping to a very his recent episodes have been much more democratic, leftist, because he's a
Mhm.
grifter and he just follows the money. So, but
Mhm.
nonetheless, it attributes to what you're saying. Go ahead.
Uh, and in a podcast last month in response to US attacks on Iran, which he attributed entirely to the malign influence of Israel, Quinones urged listeners to respond by simply boycotting businesses owned by Jews. I'm not going to read the whole paragraph. Uh, Now I want to go to the next person. I don't even know these people. This is what the news article says, not me.
Hmm.
Matthew Pearson of Tampa Bay, Florida, is listed on the initial filings of the Yellow Dog Pack, a Florida OGC chapter. Pearson is a writer for two Christian nationalist publications, American Reformer and Transcript, which where he praised a book that says Christians should be anti-gay and commended the social theories of Nazi jurist Carl Schmitt. Other members are connected with the armed forces and defense contractors. And there are many, many, many members. Like I said, there are 26 uh, chapters. And this, I don't know what their intent is, but I guess things get lost in transition in government. I
Well,
don't know why they're not looking into it.
I can tell you, I can absolutely tell you why they're not looking into it, because unfortunately, there's a lot of cabinet members that are maybe not in full support, but are in semi support. Like we have to recognize that we are not in a democratic society anymore. Whatever you would like to determine that as after that, I can go in for the next 2 hours about what that is, but we are no longer in a democratic society in America. This is that, especially with this cabinet. And where we are headed is much worse unless things change. That being said, the habits and isms that come out of this group do relate closer to the Trump administration than the general public and anyone else. I say that because one, Trump's entire campaign was make America great again. Bring America back to the glory days. And now you've got a group called the Old Glory Club. First off, second off, Trump is mass deporting legal, documented immigrants, not just illegal criminals. It's being documented across the board. He is actively doing a mass deportation. And now with alligator Alcatraz, which is the dumbest thing on the planet. Uh,
I agree.
not only is that thing not effective, but it's in my opinion most definitely money laundering. There's no way $500 million, $450 million is what it costs to put some tents and temporary beds on a tarmac. Uh, I, I'm sorry to tell you, $150,000 a year per person is what it's going to cost to hold those 5,000 people there. And they cut Snap, and Snap only was about $2,500 a person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's no way that this is fiscally responsible in any. And mind you, that's the one. He DeSantis is in the process of trying to get a second one built, which means we're coming on the cusp of $1 billion a year for some tents and cots. But
Yeah.
but we have to cut Medicaid, but we have to cut SNAP. The ideologies parallel. The difference is this OGC group is taking it to the max. They are not afraid to be straightforward with it. Whether the Trump administration is planning to get to that point, that's up to the historians and the more the people who have more expertise, not for me to say. I can give my opinion on it, but it's not for me to claim. But they do have parallels. They do have ideologies that parallel. And so the OGC group is simply taking it to the next step, and they're just not afraid to do it because this administration has given them uh the feeling to has given them the ability to feel emboldened in their actions because they realize that they will not be persecuted for their actions. They realize that there's a high chance that they're not people are not going to go after them and throw them in jail for said beliefs. And that's a
Yeah,
huge
yeah,
problem. That's a huge problem, but that is also a result of what America has cultivated.
yeah. I thought that we would be on this because we have talked about this before. It's not a new topic for me. Um, I'm not ultra religious, but I am ultra sensitive. Um, I remember one of my friends uh, had told me when I was in high school that his father was a member of the country club. He was a tennis. He later became a tennis pro,
Mhm.
and I asked my dad, "How come you don't want to join you know, a country club?" And he said, "Well, I really don't have that much use to it for it unless I'm taking customers out." But then he got into golf at a later age, and he also said to me, "They won't accept us."
Yeah.
And I said, "Why?" Well, he said, "We're Jewish." I said, "What's wrong with being Jewish?" And he said, "They're anti-Semitic." And years went by, and finally we were able to join a club, not me, him, and his company out in Long Island that accepted everyone. And I didn't realize that until I took a trip down the south one day. I don't like these groups that separate people. I took a trip outside. It was 1963, and I stopped off at a gas station to get gas with my friend, should rest in peace, and we were going to California. And being naive, I walked to the men's bathroom and I went to the wrong bathroom. It said whites only. It said whites only,
Yeah.
and I went in to get the key, and they said, "Yeah, whites only. We don't allow interracial use of bathrooms." I said, "Why not?" And he says, and it got kind of nasty, and I realized I better shut my mouth. Nothing was to be gained, and then in those days, you had to be worried about whether you marry interracially crossing state lines. Might be the same in some states today, but we knew of the KKK. I'll never forget when I lived in Queens, New York. The KKK marched down a street called Ditmars Boulevard,
Hmm.
and the police were all lined up on both sides of the street, and the Klan was walking down the street, and residents of the area, which was Jackson Heights, and a lot of the young one tried to dismantle some of the hoods and threw rocks at them. And I was glad. I was glad, but realized something was wrong. The police didn't do anything because they realized what a group this was.
Well, it's because they're there to protect property, not people.
Yeah,
So they were standing by because they're not they're not their job is to protect property. So they
yeah,
like if they have to protect people because the Klan starts attacking people, sure. But their innate job is to protect property. So they stood
yeah,
by and watched because that's what they do.
yeah.
Um,
So let me just give a footnote. My family was Jewish. My wife was not. She was another religion. You're another religion. My daughter's another religion. And my grandson's another religion. So we're multi religion. So I have no uh, feelings towards any one religion more than another. I respect all religions. And as we said on past podcasts, there are over 3,000 organized religions. There should be no separatism and no picking on any religion.
Mm.
So, this article and the formation of 26 clubs, I don't know what their total intent is.
Well, no, it's
Again,
obvious what their total intent is, especially in the article. They are trying they're trying to remove the demographics that they don't like, which are non-white, non-Christian groups. Non-white and non-evangelical, specifically evangelical Christian, that's the one that has consistently, especially the past couple of years, but consistently in various far right extremist groups, Christian evangelical Christians is the one that consistently comes up. And it's a very specific type of Christianity. And so, but that's the goal is I don't know if the right term is homogenize, but getting everyone to turn into this, which is far right, i.e., Germanic, white Christian, you know, border where like you might as well say Aryan white. Like we get it.
yeah, I
That
don't know if they're,
it's a new age. They're not trying to do what he did. They're doing their own version because unfortunately this is part of like it's part of the playbook. You don't get to say that your group is better and hierarchical. They are in the article, the Guardian article, they actively have one of the members refer to someone of darker complexion as an ape. Like I mean they are dehumanizing and looking for demographics of people to be removed from this country, that whether it's because of their religion or because of their skin color, and because they think that those people are wrong or bad for not like realistic reasons. Now,
yeah.
now some of the important things to focus on regarding groups like this one and others is they Russia has done the Soviet Union has done irreparable damage to this world. Their disinformation playbook from Soviet era. The I remember learning about this in college. I've spoken about this probably on this podcast at least. I've spoken on this podcast at least three to five times. Um, the disinformation playbook that the Russians used to spread and falsify information. There was a whole step, like multi-step process, and I remember learning it in college, and I don't remember the full thing, but I remember significant portions of it. Some of it being one, making the origins of the truth murky. So making it difficult to find the origins of the actual truth and facts, and making the disinformation embed the disinformation with the other information so that it's difficult to discern what is and what isn't. Deny, 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 i.e., a method of Trump, right? He will not, doesn't matter how much of a fact you could have the person who achieved said scientific breakthrough and he would still deny it. Um, you have uh, one of the big ones, which has become, unfortunately, a social media strategy for a lot of people to grow and become famous, is taking a nugget of truth and wrapping it around a bunch of lies. So, for example, in this article, they talk about the group talks about I'm going to paraphrase because I don't think I can find it fully. Hold on, let me see if I can quickly.
If this continues to spread, you're going to have a government within a government.
We're arguably already at that point, but um, so okay, so this is a here. I'll pull it up actually. I'll pull it up on screen for those watching. again from the Guardian article. Um, in a podcast last month in response to U.S. attacks on Iran, which he attributed entirely to the malign influence of Israel. Quinones urged listeners to respond by simply boycotting businesses owned by Jews and took side swipes at Indians. This is the kernel of truth wrapped in a lie. The attack on Iran was absolutely attributed to the influence of Israel because Israel was the one going after them and then multiple times asked America to participate. So it is absolutely a fact that this was an influence of Israel. Where the lies get wrapped around is now he's urging people to go after all Jews and Indians. That's the problem. And that's a consistent feature within far right demographics, but people in general, is they take a truth or they take a fact and they then extend with far right groups, they tend to do what in this quote, which is they take the fact and then rather than saying, hey, let's advocate for our government to maybe not get involved in unnecessary wars. Trump said he didn't want to he said no more wars. Why is he getting involved in another war? Let's go to our Congress. Let's talk to our representatives and let's handle this in a way that's better for our people. Instead, they take it to the extreme, which is it's them, it's the people, it's the Jews, and let's all of them. And that's a problem. That's extremist. And that is an incorrect, that's a fallacy because why what do they have to do with another country? They're here. They're in America. They have
Well,
nothing to do. So and whether you support or go against, that's not the point. The point is they will take this fact that occurred, which is Israel was involved with Iran and what's going on, and they asked for the US to be involved. They influenced US's involvement in this now conflict. And as a response, what should have been the response is we need to urge our representatives to pull out or not participate if that's what you agree with, because we should be focusing on our own country instead of funding more wars. But instead, this group takes it to the extreme and then blames certain demographics of people as if they themselves are responsible like a hive mind and they all need to be dealt with.
yeah, well, they've been
That's
doing this with Jews for hundreds and hundreds of years.
right, but it goes in line with even if it's not them, even if it's not Jews,
Excuse me.
it's people of color, it's in Native Americans, it's indigenous people, whoever, whatever, and whichever demographic that's not white, straight white Christians. If it's not those people, then they are people who have been not sought after, have been a point of topic for these demographics, for these groups, these organizations. Um, but unfortunately, when you are dealing with illiterate and unintelligent people, especially in America, because one in five, one in five people in America are illiterate, cannot read, cannot like, not like cannot read. One in five. And 50%, it's like 53%, half of America has a reading level below sixth grade. So they struggle with words like sympathetic. Autocracy is beyond them. Sympathetic, psychology, inconsequential. I mean, like they cannot understand complex topics. Or
And
to
and
what?
the shame also is, Peter, those who can read became a soundbite society.
They became a soundbite society and they have been villainized because especially with this administration, we are demonizing intelligence. That's why we're going to defund the colleges. That's why, despite many experts going against RFK Jr., People still support RFK Jr., despite many scientists and experts, despite many people providing evidence to Trump. He still denies it because it's not about facts. It's about feelings and about his personal narrative. So, but I lost my train of thought. Oh God.
Okay, so I just want to say this. Uh, I agree with most of what you're saying, but with an article such as this, one should say, are there other articles? Uh, should we look into it further?
We should absolutely be looking into it further. But unfortunately, like I said, with the current state of the US, this is a expected coming out story of this group. They feel emboldened because of the current administration. This administration is uh, um, not promoting this, but making demographics like this feel safe because they know that they will not get prosecuted. And they know that even if they get caught, they may not be bothered. Trump pardoned all the January Sixers. He's bringing some of the January Sixers into his cabinet. I read an article 2 days ago. Like people who stormed the Capitol, people who broke in and did the one of the worst things that you could arguably do in America, pardoned and are now being brought onto his team.
Yeah,
So
because they'll turn it around and say, because I hear it here, this was American freedom.
call it whatever you want,
Yeah,
but that's my point.
yeah, I got you.
It is unfortunate, and mind you, it's not like America ever had this under control. There's plenty of southern towns in the US that still have sundown towns. They've been known for decades as sundown towns.
Sheldon,
We spoke about this on this podcast a couple months ago. And for those who don't know, a sundown town is a town specifically in the South that is still very, very racist and is known to be extremely dangerous for people who are not white. And the reason it's called Sundown Town is when the sun goes down, if you're still there, if you are not white and you are in one of these towns after the sun goes down, your life is in extreme danger. The cops, the mayors, the people in that town do not care. They will and have gone after and ended people's lives
yeah,
because they still believe in segregation, in the beliefs that were supposed to be demolished decades ago.
yeah. This article also says that they want the restoration of Confederate values and statues.
Right. Of course. And again, it's all connected for that exact reason. And unfortunately, like I said, this administration makes them feel powerful. This administration makes them feel confident in saying these things out loud. A healthy society, a healthy country would have these types of people fearful or not at all. Because personally, KKK members should not exist. That should not be
Yeah,
a thing anymore. No one should be that. There's no such thing as a healthy or reform. Like that's not a thing. That's like saying, oh well, like not like Nazis are there. It's like no, there should not be such thing. Those are not good people. There's nothing about them that is redeemable. That's not that is a big problem. And
okay.
so uh
So,
not
with this in mind, we can talk about this forever, the injustice that's occurred recently and throughout history. But for anybody who's listening, who cares, uh, and just doesn't care about themselves, but cares about where our society is and where it's headed, I think that you should constantly look into things and not an ostrich who sticks their head in the sand and say it doesn't exist. So hear a sound bite and says, "Yeah, that's right, that's right." I understand we don't have educated people. Doesn't mean just because you're not educated doesn't mean you're not smart. It means that uh, Well, I don't want to get into that. You can make a lot of enemies that way. But
I think the important part of what correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the important part of what to focus on is not only empathy for everyone, your fellow man and everyone around you, but facts. If you have someone trying to tell you something, if RFK tries to tell you something, read the facts. Don't follow, focus on the scientists, the experts, the people who have education, years and decades worth. And if it's one scientist versus 100, and the other 100 are well established ones, trust the 100. Trust the 100 that are well established.
I wonder what
And
OGC uh, uh,
AOC,
Joe Rogan has to say about this group.
Joe Rogan has to say about this group. I would assume he has the normal human response to this, which is this is a bad group. I would assume so. I would hope so. Um, but with him, I really don't know because I don't think that man has any actual solid beliefs that have hit the internet airwaves. Um,
His personality.
he's a personality for profit. That's it. Because he just
Okay.
does not have,
Okay.
like I said, the stuff that he's producing recently compared to what he was producing 6 months ago is night and day. So, like, I would love and hope and pray that he's got that under control, but I can't even promise you that.
Yeah. I want
um,
to, unless you have something else to say, I want to just end the podcast by saying my prayers go out to Texas, North Carolina, and Mexico, where the floods have killed many, many people, children, campers, and such. And that's some more bad news. But let's hope that there'll be some good news on our next podcast to talk about. But I want to follow up on this OGC group.
yeah, I agree. We can. And I agree that's good.
Okay?
Everyone have a good rest of your day. Peace out.
Peace
Uh,
out. Be well.
be well.